Get out. People like you don't belong here. The words cracked through the airport lounge like a whip, silencing the clink of glasses and hum of conversation. Every head turned. It wasn't whispered, it was deliberate, sharp, and meant to wound. At the center of the sudden stillness stood a woman in a cream blazer, Ava Morgan, her posture straight, her expression still. The insult had been thrown to break her composure, but it rebounded instead, exposing the ugliness in the one who'd spoken, a flight attendant named Claire Benson, her polished smile now twisted with disdain. I said step outside, Claire repeated, louder this time, her voice echoing against the marble floor. This lounge is for premium travelers, not for people like you. Ava didn't move. The black leather strap of her handbag rested on her arm, steady as her breathing. Her eyes locked on Claire's face, calm, unblinking, assessing. She didn't need to raise her voice. The silence around her did it for her. A man in a navy business suit shifted uncomfortably. A younger passenger in denim pulled out his phone, recording with trembling hands. The red light on his screen blinked like a heartbeat. Claire's chin lifted higher. If you don't leave right now, I'll call security. The words animal and impostor still hung heavy in the air, impossible to ignore. Ava had heard versions of them before, on playgrounds, in boardrooms, in quiet rooms where polite prejudice wore perfume, but not like this, not in front of strangers who could see it raw. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence unnerved them more than anger ever could. Then, a man in a silver badge, Mark Reynolds, the lounge supervisor, approached. His expression carried that smug confidence of someone used to being obeyed. We've had this happen before, he said, voice cold and clipped. Fake passes. Stolen identities. Step outside, miss. Ava's gaze flicked toward the badge, then back to his face. She said nothing. Mark reached across the counter, snatched the boarding pass she'd placed there, and tore it clean in two. The sound was sharp, final, a paper execution. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "That's real." I saw it skin green. Phones rose higher. Claire crossed her arms, pretending to look in control. Security will handle this, she said, glancing toward the approaching guards. This lounge isn't a waiting room for imposters. Ava bent slowly, picked up the torn halves of her boarding pass, brushed them once, and held them between two fingers. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but laced with steel. You'll regret this. Mark laughed, a short, nervous sound. Regret what? Enforcing policy. Ava reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and pressed one button. Activate verification protocol, she said clearly. A pause. Then a crisp voice responded through the speaker. Confirmed, Ms. Morgan. Protocol is live. Lounge footage synced to compliance. The color drained from Mark's face. Claire blinked. The guards hesitated mid-step, glancing at each other. The room's atmosphere shifted, power moving, silently, invisibly, to where it always should have been. Ava's tone didn't rise, didn't break. You just destroyed the boarding pass of the airline's chief equity officer, she said, her words precise, almost gentle. Every second you delay this apology is being recorded and transmitted to headquarters. Mark's mouth opened, but no sound came. Claire's scarf trembled as she fidgeted with it. The younger guard lowered his hand, suddenly aware of how close he'd come to disaster. From the back of the lounge, the man in denim spoke up, voice steady now. I told you. I saw her ticket skin green. An older woman by the window nodded, voice trembling with outrage. And we all heard you call her an animal. Phone stayed raised. Eyes burned with quiet judgment. Ava stood perfectly still, the torn boarding pass in one hand, her phone in the other. The silence returned, but this time it belonged to her. Mark swallowed hard, his confidence gone. Ms. Morgan, She cut him off gently. No need. Just remember this moment the next time you think authority gives you dignity. Security lowered their radios. Claire's face paled. The murmurs grew louder, then applause, small, hesitant at first, but growing. Ava didn't bask in it. She simply turned, heels clicking softly against the marble, and walked toward the gate. Behind her, the lounge buzzed with what it had just witnessed, the moment arrogance met accountability and lost. Phones down, Mark Reynolds barked, voice cracking under the strain. No recordings allowed in restricted areas. But it was too late. The glow of dozens of screens bathed the polished walls in blue light. What had begun as a quiet humiliation was no longer private. It was being captured, shared, and multiplied by every thumb-pressing record. Ava Morgan pressed her phone closer to her lips. "Document the language used," she said, calm and deliberate. "Confirmed," came a voice through the phone, clear enough for those closest to hear. Every insult, every false order, every misuse of authority, logged and timestamped. "Compliance has been notified." Mark tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. "You're bluffing," he spat. "This is just theater." Ava's eyes rose to meet his, steady, unblinking. Theater ends when the truth walks in. The guards exchanged uncertain looks. The crowd leaned forward, their silence electric. The hum of the terminal shifted. It was no longer the sound of travelers waiting. It was the breath of witnesses holding judgment. Claire Benson folded her arms, her scarf twitching at her throat. "You are disrupting an international departure," she declared, her voice sharp and public. "Security has full discretion to remove you." Before the guards could move, a voice from the corner rang out. "This isn't security, it's harassment." It was the older woman with silver hair, her tone bright and cutting. "I heard the words. You called her an animal. You tore her ticket. That's not procedure." Her words cracked something open. She stood there quietly. A man in a business suit added, his voice shaking with anger. "You escalated." "Not her." Mark turned toward the growing chorus. "This is not your concern. This is official policy." From near the windows, a teenager's voice rose, trembling but fierce. "Then why are you afraid of us recording it?" The younger guard's jaw tightened. His hand dropped from his belt. He looked from the torn boarding pass in Ava's hand to the glowing sea of screens aimed at him. Doubt flickered where certainty had been. Ava stepped forward. Her heels struck the marble like punctuation. "Every insult, every order, every attempt to erase me is now part of your record," she said, her tone even. "You wanted me silent. Instead, you created evidence." Gasps rippled across the lounge. The young man in denim whispered into his phone, "She's not bluffing. This is real." Mark wiped sweat from his temple. "Evidence means nothing. You're not verified. You're trespassing." But his words fell flat. The room no longer believed him. Power had shifted, subtly but entirely. Ava lifted her phone again. "Proceed to phase 2. The voice on the line replied instantly, crisp and composed. "Confirmed. Phase 2 active. Compliance is monitoring live. Legal audit initiated." Mark's smirk faltered. The guards froze. The authority that once filled the space was unraveling like cheap thread. "This isn't about a boarding pass anymore," someone murmured. "This is about who thinks they can get away with this." Mark looked at the guards, desperate. "Don't just stand there." But the younger one took a step back. The crowd was watching, phones high, silent as witnesses in court. Claire's voice cut through the tension, brittle and defensive. "Enough of this performance. People like you always play the victim when caught lying. Stop wasting everyone's time and step outside before we have you arrested." The words hit the air like stones, but this time, they didn't land. The crowd stiffened, disapproval spreading like a wave. "She showed her ticket," the young man in denim shouted. "You tore it up." "Arrest her for what? Existing." A businessman near the espresso counter dropped his briefcase. "I travel every week," he said loudly. "I've never seen anyone treated like this. You're not protecting the airline. You're destroying its name." Ava didn't move. She hadn't needed to raise her voice once, yet the room orbited her stillness. Her eyes swept the crowd, then settled back on Mark. "You tore my boarding pass," she said evenly. "You call me an impostor. You call me an animal. You threaten me with removal, all in front of witnesses. This is your record now, not mine." Mark tried to interrupt, but she lifted her hand slightly. "You think you control this space," she said. "But what you've really done is write your own violation report." The lounge went still. Then a soft chime sounded from Ava's phone. A calm voice followed. "Escalation noted. Incident file updated. Corporate Ethics Board has been alerted. All biased language recorded. Proceed as you see fit." Claire's throat bobbed. The guards exchanged glances, unsure which authority they were supposed to serve. The crowd leaned closer, phones capturing every twitch of fear. "You thought silence meant weakness?" Ava said quietly. "It means patience, and patience has limits." Near the window, the same teenager whispered, "She's not afraid of them." Her mother nodded. "No, they're afraid of her." The room's gravity had shifted completely. Authority didn't sit behind a badge or uniform anymore. It stood calmly in a cream blazer, holding a torn ticket like a flag of truth. Mark's voice cracked. You're manipulating the crowd. This is all a stunt. People like you crave attention. The phrase landed with a thud. A man near the back muttered, People like you. There it is again. Another passenger spoke louder. We all hear it. We all see it. Ava tilted her head slightly. Every word you speak digs deeper, she said softly. You think power is shouting. Real power is evidence. The crowd murmured approval. Claire lunged forward, reaching for Ava's phone. Enough, she snapped, desperation sharp in her voice. Hand that over. You can't record here. Ava didn't flinch. This isn't your lounge, she said calmly. And it's not your rule to make. You tore the proof of my right to be here. Now every witness carries it instead. Claire froze, realizing every camera was aimed her way. The recording lights felt heavier than her uniform. From the back, the teenager rose to her feet. I heard everything, she said, trembling but fierce. I heard when you called her an animal. I saw you rip her pass. Don't pretend it didn't happen. We all saw it. Mark spun toward her. Sit down. This doesn't involve you. It involves all of us, the girl said, stepping closer. Because if you can do this to her, you can do it to anyone. Her words set something ablaze. The businessman near the bar clapped once. Others followed. A rumble of agreement filled the lounge. Ava lowered her phone, her tone still measured. You wanted to erase me. Instead, you erased your own credibility. Mark's jaw flexed. Security. Remove her now. But the guards didn't move. One cleared his throat. Sir, the situation's already documented. Maybe we should verify her status first. Ava lifted her phone again. Proceed to internal escalation. Confirmed, her assistant's voice said smoothly. Audit triggered. Access checks underway. Shall I alert corporate leadership? Yes, Ava replied. Alert them and lock all personnel involved. Mark's face drained of color. You're bluffing. You can't order anything. A businessman near the bar whispered. She's not bluffing. She sounds like someone who can actually do that. Claire tried again, but her voice cracked. She's trying to intimidate us. Don't let her. But then Ava's phone spoke again. Protocol escalation complete. Incident feed live. All parties identified. Silence. The young man in denim whispered, This isn't fake. Ava turned to Mark, her gaze steady. You believed you could define me by tearing paper and raising your voice. But paper burns. Voices fade. Evidence remains. Mark tried to recover, but his voice broke. You're just a passenger. Ava's reply came quiet and final. You'll find out soon enough that I'm much more than that. The guards looked at each other, then at their terminals. One of them frowned. Sir, he said cautiously, her name just appeared on my screen. Executive level clearance. It says ownership authority. The crowd gasped. Someone whispered, Ownership? Claire blinked, her confidence collapsing. That can't be right. She walked in here like anyone else. Ava slipped the torn ticket into her bag. That's the problem, she said softly. You only recognize power when it looks like you expect it to. And with that, the balance in the room broke for good. She cannot be, Mark Reynolds stammered. But his voice was already fading beneath the hum of whispers. The woman in the cream blazer turned toward him, her expression calm, yet unyielding. I am not just another passenger, Ava Morgan said. Her tone was soft, too soft for what came next. I am the majority shareholder of this airline, of this terminal, of this system you try to weaponize against me. Everything here answers to me. The words dropped like thunder in a canyon. For a moment, no one breathed. Then the silence fractured. Gasps, the click of camera phones, the rising murmur of disbelief. She owns the airline, whispered the young man in denim, his phone trembling in his hands. She's not bluffing, she owns it. Mark's mouth opened, then closed. The authority that once clung to him like armor now hung in tatters. His badge, his uniform, his practiced superiority, none of it could stand against the truth glowing from the guard's terminal beside him. Ownership authority, Ava Morgan. The black woman lowered her phone, her gaze sweeping across the stunned faces. You told me to wait outside, she said quietly. But I do not wait. I leave. Applause broke out from the back, hesitant at first, then swelling, building into something unstoppable. I knew it. The teenager near the window cried, her voice trembling with awe. I knew she wasn't afraid. She was waiting for this moment. In that instant, everything changed. The balance of power flipped like a coin in midair. The woman they tried to humiliate had just revealed herself as the one person none of them could afford to offend. The lounge seemed to hold its breath. Even the PA system faltered mid-announcement, as though the airport itself had paused to listen. Mark's face drained of color. He turned toward the guards, desperate. That's impossible. It's some kind of error. But the guard only shook his head. Sir, her credentials check out. Executive clearance. Passengers murmured, the sound rising like the tide. They tried to throw out their own owner. A woman in a red coat said loudly. This is going viral right now. Phones lifted higher, recording every detail, the disbelief, the shame, the quiet composure of the woman in cream. Claire Benson, her flight attendant scarf tied at her throat, tried to speak. This must be a mistake. We didn't know. Ava's eyes met hers, steady as glass. You knew enough to call me an animal, she said. You knew enough to tear my ticket. What you didn't know is that silence doesn't mean surrender. An older woman with silver hair stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. I saw it all. You treated her like she didn't exist. Now she's the one person you can't erase. Applause spread again, sharp and deliberate. The sound echoed off the marble floors like a verdict. Mark lifted his hands, desperate to contain the chaos. Everyone calm down. This is a misunderstanding. Protocols are complicated. Mistakes happen. But the young man in denim shouted back. Mistakes don't sound like calling someone an animal. Mistakes don't tear tickets in half. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. A chime came from Ava's phone. The same calm voice as before spoke through the speaker. Corporate board online. All live feeds synchronized. They await your instruction. Every sound in the room seemed to fade. Claire went still. The guards froze. Ava took one quiet step forward. The click of her heel sliced through the silence. This isn't about me anymore, she said, her words deliberate. It's about how you treat people when you think no one important is watching. And now everyone is. Dozens of cameras zoomed closer, recording every syllable. The trial, she continued, is already over. You passed judgment on yourselves. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mark's throat worked, but no words came out. His badge no longer looked like authority. It looked like evidence. Ava lifted her phone again. Execute termination of all personnel involved. Effective immediately. Lock their system access. Suspend their credentials. Log everything for legal audit. Confirmed, replied the voice on her phone. Credentials frozen. Access revoked. Termination notices sent. System updated live. It happened instantly. Mark's badge blinked red, then went dark. Claire's screen froze with a message, access denied. Gasps rippled through the lounge. Passengers leaned forward, watching the impossible unfold in real time. She just fired them. The young man whispered into his phone, right here, right now. The older woman pressed a hand to her chest. That, she said softly, is justice. Mark stumbled backward. You can't do this. You can't end people's careers in public like this. Ava's voice cut through his panic like steel. You ended your own career the moment you turned prejudice into policy. I didn't take your power. You handed it over when you decided someone's worth by the color of their skin. Claire's hands shook. Please, she whispered. I didn't mean. Ava's gaze didn't soften. You meant every word when you said it. What you didn't mean was to be caught. Applause thundered through the lounge, raw and righteous. Travelers rose to their feet, clapping until the air itself seemed to vibrate. The guards stood aside now, not as enforcers, but as witnesses. Ava stood in the center, calm and unbroken, the torn boarding pass still in her hand. No longer a symbol of rejection, it was proof of endurance. This lounge belongs to me, she said, her voice low but clear. This airline belongs to me. But justice belongs to everyone who's ever been told they don't belong. The crowd erupted again, louder this time. Applause crashed through the terminal, drowning out the airport's usual hum. Travelers clapped, cheered, shouted words of support. Mark's head bowed, his shoulders heavy. The badge on his chest pulsed red like a wound. Claire's scarf had come loose, her trembling fingers unable to fix it. Ava turned slowly, meeting every gaze. Her composure commanded silence as naturally as a tide follows the moon. Each step she took echoed like the beat of a verdict. She raised the torn pass for all to see. You told me to wait outside. You tried to strip away my dignity. But dignity isn't yours to take, it's mine to carry. Her voice grew stronger. You tried to erase me. Instead, you revealed yourselves. Every word you spoke says more about you than it ever could about me. The teenager by the window lifted her phone high. Say it louder, she shouted. They need to hear this everywhere. Ava's gaze softened slightly, not in forgiveness, but in quiet power. This paper meant nothing once you decided I didn't belong. But it's not paper that defines belonging. It's purpose. And my purpose doesn't ask for permission. She paused, letting the weight of her words fill the space. I don't wait outside. I don't beg for entry. I don't ask for recognition. I lead. The room exploded in applause. People stood, clapping until their hands hurt. Some had tears in their eyes. Others simply nodded, knowing they'd witnessed something larger than a confrontation. Ava Morgan turned toward the glass doors, her steps sure and unhurried. She didn't need to look back. Justice had already been served, not through shouting or revenge, but through truth delivered with absolute calm. And as she disappeared into the terminal's golden light, one truth rippled through every watching heart. Power doesn't roar. It stands.